A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another graphic novel review today. Of course, being accompanied by Bella Bear, who's asleep over there on the sofa, so cheers. And today we are heading into book 7 of the Preacher graphic novel series, Salvation. After this, we only have 2 more to go. Possibly 3, depending on how I choose to split up the next graphic novel, and you will see why when I get to that. This was a really fun addition to the Preacher mythos. For a number of reasons. We get some backstory on what happened in the 6 months between the nuclear bomb going off, and we find out how Jesse Custer loses his eye. We get a little bit of backstory about what exactly happened to his mother. We get to see one of the greatest comic book villains of all time, and I don't mean superhero comic book villains, I just mean stuff like this, in the character of Odin Quincannon, who, if I'm not mistaken, was the main antagonist in season 1 of Preacher. It's been a long time since I watched it, but in here, this guy is just a fucked up mess. You thought Star was bad. Odin Quincannon is one of the greatest comic book villains ever put to paper, in my personal opinion. If you're into that kind of a thing with your comic books, if you're into a little bit of crime, a little bit of grit, a little bit of noir, and a little bit of just pure fucked up shit, this is the one for you. And then we get a resolution to the Preacher spaceman story from earlier. If you remember, Jesse met up with one of the guys that was his father's friend in Vietnam, and that kind of comes full circle at the end of this. So this is a very well rounded out story. We don't get any Tulip and Cassidy stuff in this book. This is purely Jesse being Jesse in the town of Salvation, which is what the graphic novel is named after. This is going to be a spoiler-filled review, as my graphic novel reviews always are. I pretty much go through the story and show it to you as it is and kind of explain what's going on. Although, unlike a lot of other channels that do this kind of thing, I could go into a little more detail. I could do it kind of panel by panel, but a lot of the nuances and things like that, I would prefer you to go out and read them on your own. This is just for people that want the story without having to read all the minutiae and the dialogue and everything, because a lot of these are very dialogue heavy. So that's just an explanation as to why I do it the way I do it. But you know what? Strap yourself in, because I guarantee you this one is going to be a good time. If you've been enjoying the graphic novel reviews of Preacher, you're going to love this. If you haven't been following them, go back on the channel and check them out. One day, I'm going to get off my lazy ass and put stuff into playlists to make it a little bit easier. I might even consider doing some YouTube shorts. I'll talk with my Plaguelands Media cronies, Ian and Luke, about exactly what we want to do with that. They seem to be the big draw these days. But until then, you know, sit back, relax, have a drink of whiskey. You are in the deep south with this one. And let's just get into the next episode of...
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay, this is Preacher Book 7, Salvation. We have Jesse Custer, Skeeter, Cindy, and Jody. These are characters that we are going to meet through this story arc. Okay, so we have the cover here. Salvation, Texas. Population 1,626. We start 6 months later. Jesse and Skeeter are walking on a dock, and that's just it. They come to the end, and then we go to 6 months earlier. Jesse is driving into Salvation. He passes this tree, which seems to be burnt down, and he comes across Jody's bar, where he goes in and orders a drink. He gets harassed by some of these local guys, and they're kind of giving him shit while he's trying to drink, and he grabs one of them and is about to slam his head into the bar, but then he stops just to prove that, you know, he could have done it, but he restrained himself. And we see Gunther here kind of watching him. As he's leaving the bar, he sees these locals. Well, not locals, they're, well, kind of locals. We'll find out about that later. Harassing this girl. And she turns around. She's only got one eye. And Jesse realizes that this is Laurie, his friend Billy Bob's sister, when he was growing up. If you remember way back in Preacher Book 2, Billy Bob was supposed to marry her, but he got killed by TC in the barn. Jesse basically beats the crap out of him and makes them apologize to her. And she's very grateful. She kind of recognizes him. And as this is going on, the sheriff of Salvation and his kind of deputy, Cindy, are watching this. Cindy wants to bring him in, but the deputy's like, just let it go. Laurie takes Jesse back to the place where she's living and introduces her to this woman named Jody, who only has one arm. Jesse and Jody talk about Laurie, and Jody informs Jesse that she has this problem with her eye where what she sees isn't exactly kind of registering properly. So you can see there is like, she's looking at them and all she sees is fertilizer and a chicken, but they're still talking to her. So Jesse's staying with Jody and Laurie, and he has a nightmare kind of everything that happened in Arizona with the Saint of Killers and Star and the plane crash and Cassidy and Tulip. As he wakes up, he gets a visit from the Duke, and the Duke is like, what are you doing? You've got a mission. It's been like 3 months or whatever. You're half-assing this. Stop running from your problems. Jesse's at Jody's bar and sees this woman who is with these men. One of them, Hector, is a Mexican, and they're all kind of mocking him for being Mexican. And Jody informs Jesse that don't get angry with what she's doing. She usually just takes one of them home with her, and sometimes it's Hector, because she feels sorry for him, so it's all in good fun. And Jesse's still a little bit pissed off about that. And he goes outside and he's kind of drinking on the veranda of this bar when he meets the sheriff, and the sheriff has a proposition for him. How would you like to be my deputy? And Custer's like, nope, I want to be the sheriff. Okay, here we have our first look with this magnificent cover art of Odin Quincannon. Just creepy little fucker he is. And he is basically the owner of Quincannon Meats, which is like an abattoir. And there is this room here that he is in that he has 2 guards, and no one is allowed to go in this room while he is there. And then he comes out covered in blood in his boxer shorts. The former sheriff gives Jesse the badge and is like, this town is your fucking problem now, and drives off quite happily. Jody comments it didn't take you very long to make a difference. He goes in and he meets Cindy. Cindy is... oh, what's the word I'm looking for? She's kind of aggressive at first. I mean, she's a black woman in law enforcement in the Deep South. I don't need to tell you that America, down south, a little bit racist from what I've seen and what I've heard. And this did come out in like the 90s, so got to take that in consideration. And she's doing paperwork, and Jesse's like, maybe you can show me around the town. She goes, oh, I've got a lot of paperwork to do. And he's like, fuck that. Hire a secretary. Take it out of my pay. And she's like, okay. She's kind of warmed to him a little bit. So she goes to take him around the town. Kind of let him know what's going on in the town itself. When Odin Quincannon makes a visit because he's heard that there is a new sheriff in town, and he wants Jesse to know exactly how things go in the town of Salvation. He hires men, they come in to work for him, and the deal is that they get to basically come into Salvation and do whatever they want to let off steam. The sheriff has always looked the other way. That's the deal. And Quincannon is like, I bring a lot of money into this town, so that's how it goes. And Jesse throws him through a window. And when Quincannon's bodyguard comes, Jesse punches him in the face and kicks him to shit. Where he is approached by Miss Oatlash, who is Quincannon's lawyer. And she basically says, I'm going to sue the shit out of you. And Quincannon's like, nope, we're going to do this my way. He is mine. That's the way it's going to be. Jody hears about this and she's like, okay, you're already making waves. Fair enough. Cindy and Jesse are... I apologize for that. Some idiot outside doesn't know how to fucking drive. Cindy and Jesse are out kind of practicing their fighting techniques, talking about exactly what happened. And Cindy is kind of a little bit annoyed with the way Jesse handled things because it was above and beyond the law. And she is actually quite law-abiding. Jesse, proves that he's a pretty good shot and tells her, okay, I'll make sure it's all above board. Quincannon wants Oatlash to find some dirt on Jesse Custer. Jesse has decided to move out of Jody's house and move into the back of the police station. And Laurie is basically saying, you don't have to, it's all good. I know she likes you. She doesn't open up to a lot of people, but I know she likes you. Then we get the sheriff who has been pulled over, and the guy that pulled him over basically shoots him. We know he's one of Quincannon's men, and just drives away. And the bar has been closed. Jesse is talking with Jody, and it's then that he realizes that Jody is in fact his mother. Big reveal there. So we see, going back to when he was a child, Jody takes Christine out to this dock. He's been ordered by Jesse's grandmother, Christine's mother, to kill her. And Christine says, John, my husband, told me one thing about you, that you're slow. And she spins around and kicks him in the balls. And just as she does that, he fires, clipping her in the side of the head, and she falls into the swamp. And Jody kind of fires at her, but to no avail. So they have a reunion, and Jesse kind of wants to know her story. He's not angry or anything like that. It's actually a really poignant and sweet issue where we find out exactly what happened to her. So she kind of came out of the swamp. She's in a bit of a daze because of a head wound, and a gator bites her arm off. But there happened to be some kind of hunters and fishermen nearby who saw what happened, and they go and they rescue her. And they manage to scare off the gator. They get her out of the swamp, and they're trying to ask her a name. And in her head, because she's been shot, all she can see is Jody's face, so she keeps saying the name Jody. So that's what they think her name is. And she's put into hospital, finally kind of a mental asylum as well. And when she recovers enough, she decides to go off and search for her son, but her memories are scattered and she keeps forgetting what she's doing or what she wants to do. And she happens to run into Laurie at the bus station, and she vaguely remembers Jesse's friend Billy Bob, and Laurie kind of takes pity on her, and that is how they actually come to salvation and how Jody sets up the bar. However, she does let Jesse know that there are many, many, many times when she tried to go and track him down, but she would get to a certain point and forget what she was trying to do and always end up kind of back in salvation. They talk a little bit more about the past and things like that, and they kind of reconcile together. And Laurie comes down, and Jody introduces Laurie to Jesse as her son. Miss Oatlash finds the background information on Jesse that we already know from the very first book in the series, how he was a preacher and Genesis came down and destroyed the church. And Quincanon's kind of working out how to use this to his advantage. Jody and Jesse are kind of catching up when Gunther comes along, and it's kind of obvious that Gunther maybe has a thing for Jesse's mum, and it may or may not be reciprocated. And as he's leaving the bar, he gets a light from Jesse, and we move on to Jody now, kind of back to her, a little bit more of her original self now that she's reunited with Jesse. Jesse goes to get into his truck. The truck doesn't start. He goes out, and as he's kind of leaving the truck with Skeeter, it blows up. If you can hear that in the background, that's just because we live near an American military base where planes, especially like VIP planes, like, you know, when the president comes, this is where he lands kind of thing. So we constantly get planes going over, and I have all the windows open because it's fucking summer, and I refuse to put the air conditioning on because it makes the cats sick. So I'm just sweating it out. So, the truck blows up, and Quincannon is pissed off because the bomb failed. So he calls up Outlash, who is in the middle of this Nazi kind of sex bondage thing. And Jesse gets Cindy and is like, I know that Quincannon did this. We are going to see him now. He forces his way into Quincannon's office and basically threatens him by holding him upside down out of the window until Cindy intervenes. And Jesse is like, fuck this shit. And he basically says, leave Salvation the fuck alone. If any of you men come to Salvation, they're fucking gone. Once again, Cindy confronts him. This isn't the way things are done. You need to calm it the fuck down. And Jesse's like, okay, all right, we'll do it your way. And then she asks him, listen, I really want this gun. Can we buy it? And he's like, I don't see why not. And she's like, freaking sweet. So at the bar, Jody kind of is trying to tell Jesse that Cindy has a thing for him. Toby's a bit nervous because his girlfriend is pregnant. And Jesse goes off to see Gunther just to find out what his story is, because he's a German living in this town in Texas. And Gunther lets him know that his brother was a pilot who crashed, so he became a pilot with the German Luftwaffe, but he became disillusioned and ended up immigrating to America when he didn't like the Nazi regime that was happening during the Second World War. So they kind of bond over that. And he talks about how Jesse is making a difference in this town, and that's a good thing, and if there's anything you need, blah, blah, blah. Odin Quincannon, realizing that the bomb didn't go off, decides to call in some reinforcements. We see that some of Quincannon's men have come to town and they've all been arrested and put into the cellar of the sheriff's office, which is a bad thing because they came to town to find women, and with no women, they all just fuck this blonde guy in the butt. And that's all the blonde guy can talk about. He just talks about, yeah, I had to take it up the arse. Outlash is reprimanding Custer, but then she whispers, do you like Italian food? And then we see that she seems to have a thing for him. Seeing what he's done to Quincannon and to clean up Salvation, and she's kind of got this notion in her head that he is like this Ubermensch who, if they bred, their children would be the perfect kind of race. Jody, again, is kind of talking about what happened in the past. Jesse lets her know that he took care of Jody. And yes, she's like, did you strangle him? And he's like, yes, I did. Quincannon's reprimanding his men. The blonde guy is still complaining that he got fucked in the ass. And Quincannon's like, well, if you don't like it, fuck off. We don't really need you. We can always get other people. And he goes off into his room. Jesse, as sheriff, is met by these two people. They are neighbors. This guy said that he was building a fence, but some of the lumber, when he went away for the weekend, some of the lumber was stolen, and when he came back, his neighbor had a brand new roof on his shed made of the same lumber, And Jesse's like, well, if we go and look around your place, are we going to find the lumber? And the guy's like, no, I don't know what he's talking about. He's just a fucking little liar. And the guy's like, oh, come on. It's exactly the same. Jesse goes, if I look in this bin and I find old rotted boards from your shed roof, I'll know that you took it. And he opens the bin, and sure enough, it is there. And Jesse comes to this arrangement with them where he tells the little guy, listen, here's what you can do. You can punch him in the face and call it a day, or we can settle this another way. And the little guy is like, I want to punch him in the face. And so he swings and he hits and it doesn't really connect. And then the guy's like, all right, we're all even now. That's cool. And then Jesse turns around and cold cocks him and tells the guy, next time, this is how you punch someone. Oatlash is pissed off about the people that Quincannon has brought in to help or to assist in the situation. Jesse calls a town meeting and lets them know that, listen, Quincannon's going to be coming for us. We all have to agree that we are going to fight together. That's kind of what we need to do. He's talking to Gunther, and Gunther basically lets him know, like, what he's doing is good. Jesse praises Gunther, telling him thank you for speaking up at that town meeting. It's exactly what we kind of needed to get these people on board. And then Jesse goes back to the sheriff's office and starts getting fucking hammered. And he starts seeing Cassidy and Jody and Tulip. And he keeps drinking. And at that time, a car pulls up with the gentleman that Quincannon has brought in to settle this issue. Cindy comes into the back office and finds Jesse drunk. They almost kiss when there is a commotion outside. And Cindy looks through the window and sees this burning cross. So immediately we know, okay, Quincannon's got the clan to come in to help him out. And Jesse's like drunk as shit. He's like, fuck this. And he goes out and Quincannon's like, what's he going to do? And Jesse just pisses on the cross and puts out the fire. And the clan members are like, we're going to fucking kill him. So Jesse and Cindy are playing baseball. Cindy's like, you've made some pretty big enemies here. He's like, yeah. Oatlash comes to the room that Quincannon won't let anyone enter. The guards are like, you can't go in there. She's like, I'm his fucking lawyer. I can do whatever I want. She goes in there. She sees him. She comes back out and she throws up everywhere. Quincannon comes out, covered in blood, in his boxer shorts. And she's like, you've got to put an end to this. This is ridiculous. The gun arrives that Cindy ordered. She's kind of happy with it. A fax comes through, and it is from the clan, and they say Bone Tree Midnights from a friend. The Bone Tree, of course, being the tree that Jesse passed when he came into Salvation. And rumor has it that the clan used it to hang black people, and it caught fire after maybe a lightning strike, I believe. And even the bodies were kind of burning, and that's the way it's kind of stayed since then. Jody doesn't want Jesse to kind of go. Jody's asking Gunther if Jesse and Cindy are a thing. Cindy's asking Jesse if Jody and Gunther are a thing. And Jesse decides to kind of go out there with Cindy. So the clan are at this tree and they're waiting for him. Quincannon comes out and they have their kind of little meeting. And then Jesse just walks right into the middle of it, being, Jesse, and threatens them. You can see the red dots on the Klansman's hood because Jesse knows Cindy is waiting there with the sniper rifle, and she blows off the hood and the dude's toupee and basically tells them, get the fuck out of town and don't come back. You're not wanted here. He uses his word of God to make this guy shit his pants. And then the Klansmen kind of get this one guy to come and fight him. This guy's this big beefy guy. And all it takes is Jesse to like fucking smash and rip his balls for the rest of them to just go, yeah, okay, we're out of here. And Quincannon's like, fuck off. And they take the leader of the clan hostage, Jesse and Cindy, of course, and they drive him out to John's Hollow, which is the predominantly black area of Salvation, and they throw him out of the car wearing the clan mask in front of a black bar. Quincannon, so pissed off about this, decides to plot his revenge. So he calls in this guy who is a demolitions expert. This guy has rigged every building in town with explosives, and he tells him, here is the detonator. If you click the first button, it'll set off one at a time. If you click the second button, every building in town will explode. This is Quincannon's ultimate revenge. He just wants to completely destroy the town of Salvation. He signs over the check to pay the demolitions expert. Gunther and Jesse are drinking on the veranda of Jody's bar. Toby comes out and throws up just because he's worried about becoming a father. And as they're talking, Cindy pulls up and is like, hey, I'm going to get some Chinese food. Have you had dinner? We'll eat it back at the office. I'll see you in a little bit. And then there's kind of the back and forth, like, are you two doing stuff? Maybe, maybe not. Oatlash thinks Quincannon's gone out of his fucking mind. Quincannon's like, nope, this is the only way it has to be. As Jody's driving, she kind of gets ambushed by two of Quincannon's men who hold her at gunpoint. Jesse gets a visit from the Duke, who basically reprimands him again. You're just spinning wheels here. You've got something to fucking do. And as Jesse kind of gets off his ass and Jody comes out to talk to him, the sheriff's office explodes. Jody has come out with a phone and she hands it to him, and it is Quincannon telling him where and when to meet. Cindy gets the better of these two hillbilly fucks and manages to escape. So Quincannon and Jesse have a showdown on this train bridge. All the while, Jody is like, we've got to fucking go. We've got to fucking fight. This is ridiculous. Right now, Jesse's out there alone. We've got to go and do something. Quincannon has a gun. And he's basically telling Jesse that this is it. Everything's over. I win. He calls the two guys up who apparently have Cindy, but they're like, yeah, there's been a bit of a snafu. And Quincannon's like, all right, fuck this. Everything's going to fucking explode. Just as he's about to press the button, he gets struck by lightning as we see the whole town has kind of come to back up Jesse. So he's kind of severely burnt. He shoots at Jesse and manages to escape. Just as kind of the town folks are there. But in his escape, Hector gets shot through the throat. Jesse tells them to put pressure on him and get him pressure on the wound and get him to a hospital. He is going after Quincannon. He says to the dog Skeeter, stay here. But Skeeter's like, woof. And Jesse's like, all right, if you want to fucking come, fucking come. So he goes to the meat plant, goes inside, and just as he does, he gets whipped around the throat and smacked in the head with a baseball bat and knocked unconscious. And then we have Oatlash there in kind of studded undies and a leather jacket with a Nazi hat on, gloating over her victory. Okay, Jesse wakes up. He has a haircut and he is dressed like a Nazi. He is tied to a bed. He doesn't know what is going on. He's been gagged. And Skeeter kind of comes in the window and starts kind of chewing on the ropes. Jesse tells him to hide as Oatlash comes in this kind of sexy Nazi Ilse she-wolf of the SS kind of a thing. And she's demanding to be fucked by Jesse. Jesse manages to get his arm free after the dog chewed through the ropes and subdues Oatlash. In doing so, notices she has quite a library of Nazi texts and historical tomes. Cindy comes to the to Quincannon's meatpacking plant with one of her attackers subdued. And Jesse goes into the room after telling Cindy to stay there, the room that Quincannon's always in, and we see a burnt Quincannon having sex with a giant lady made of pieces of meat. And let me tell you, when I first purchased this graphic novel, I believe I got it from, it might have been King Comics in Sydney, and reading through this, the first time I saw this page, I legitimately laughed out loud, and I showed my father, and my father's reaction was, "What the fuck are you reading?" Brilliant. Just brilliant. Jesse ends up basically killing Quincannon by snapping his neck, calling it a mercy killing, which presumably it is. They take all of the napalm that was around the town that the demolitions guy kind of set up, and they burn the meat packing plant to the ground. At this point, Jesse pays Gunther a visit and confronts him with a book that he found in the Nazi lady in Oatlash's collection, which reveals that Gunther was not part of the Luftwaffe, but in fact a guard at a concentration camp who committed atrocities against the Jewish people. He begs for Jesse's forgiveness, but Jesse is like, "I'm not having none of this. There's evil, and then there's evil." And he makes a noose, and as he's leaving, he tells Gunther, "Make the right choice." Jesse is going through the sheriff's office. He's the remains of it, I should say. He's approached by Laurie, who, pardon me, has found out that Jesse is leaving town. Jesse pays one last visit to Jody's bar. We see that Hector is okay after being shot, and Jody, or Christine, his mother regardless, gives him his father's Medal of Honor. This is the highest medal that a soldier could possibly earn. And she says, "Your father would have wanted you to have this when you were older." He's basically sitting there having a drink when Cindy comes up, dressed in this kind of sleek, sexy black dress. They walk and talk, and Jesse apologizes for the almost kiss, and Cindy goes, "I knew it was never going to happen. I can see it in your eyes." And he goes, see what? And she says, you're in love with someone else, meaning Tulip. And then Jesse actually does give her that kiss and the sheriff's badge. So she is now the new sheriff of Salvation. So we get to, at the very beginning, it was 6 months later. So he's been in Salvation for 6 months. And he's at that pier with his dog. And this is where he's going to take the peyote that he purchased way back when. He still has it on him. And he purchases it and he starts to see some really weird shit. He sees visions of Cassidy and his grandmother and Jody and TC. Jody's with Tulip. And he's kind of freaking out. And then he starts to remember what happened. He was falling out of the plane. And then he wakes up and he's in the desert and he's visited by God. And God is basically telling him, hey, I've done everything for you because I love you. You should be more grateful. And Jesse's like, fuck that. At this point, he falls off the pier into the water. And Jesse's trying to question God, like, how could you kind of do this? How could you abandon everyone? And God is like, be more grateful, and gets really pissed off. Jesse's about to use the word of God against him when he grabs him and literally bites his eye out and spits it away and leaves him in the desert where he is found by the Saint of Killers. He tries to get the Saint of Killers to help him. He's like, listen, we have to go after God. You hate him. I hate him. Let's get this thing done. The Saint of Killers is like, yeah, no, I'm not helping you, and just leaves him there to die. At this point, he has a memory of Jody and TC at the bar. They've his father and his mother kind of ran when he was a little kid. And his mother smacks TC in the back of the head. And his father says, take Jesse outside. I've got some unfinished business here. And when she takes him outside, the grandmother is there waiting. The grandmother turns into this giant lizard thing, at which point a huge John Wayne stomps on them. And Jesse kind of wakes up after Skeeter kind of is licking his face. And this sets Jesse on the right path, and he kind of knows what he has to do and where he has to go after his 6 months hiatus, so to speak, in the town of Salvation. Then we come to the land of bad things. Jesse once again meets up with Spaceman, his father's old Vietnam squadron buddy that he met in the airport before he traveled to Masada. And they just have a back and forth talking about the war itself and the effects that the war had on kind of everyone that was there. And Jesse shows Spaceman the Medal of Honor and wants to know, how exactly did my father earn this? And Spaceman tells him the story. They are ambushed in the Vietnamese jungle. They're trying to get back to the choppers. 2 of the choppers have already left, and the one that they were supposed to leave on is destroyed. Spaceman has been shot in the leg, so they start kind of trekking through the jungle. Jesse's father had taken a map from the commanding officer who had already been killed, so it didn't really matter. And he knows that there's kind of a base many clicks away that they can get to, and so they start heading there, all the while talking about the futility of war and what they're going to do when they get back. And they've only got like 40 days left of their service before they're discharged and whatnot. But it ultimately gets to be too much for Spaceman, who wants Jesse to just go on ahead and leave him. He's nothing but a hindrance, and he's about to take his own life when Jesse is like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And while Spaceman has a gun to his head, Jesse's father pulls out his gun and points at the Spaceman's head, and Spaceman's like, what? You don't want me to kill myself, so you're going to kill me. And then they get into this fucking argument of, you're a fucking piece of shit if you're going to give up. Fuck you. A lot of language is kind of used that's a little bit blue, but there you go. And when Jesse's father feels like there's nothing else that they can do, Spaceman gets up, pulls him to his feet, and they manage to find the American base. However, it's across open ground, and they know that the Vietnamese soldiers are hiding in the trees ready to snipe people, so they have to wait till nightfall. So they're kind of heading across at nightfall. John is carrying Spaceman on his back when he stumbles onto something and makes a noise, and the commander of the base tells the tank guard to kind of light it up, and we see that Jesse and Spaceman have stepped on a trench full of Vietnamese soldiers, and so they just start running. The Americans are shooting, killing the Vietnamese. Spaceman and Jesse's dad are telling them, hold your fire, we're Americans. But they're ultimately hit numerous times, and when they realize that the two Marines are American, the guy's like, shit, hold your fire, we'll go out and get them. They didn't even realize they were running through the middle of a minefield at night. And because of his bravery in not leaving a soldier behind, and so on and so forth, and kind of getting to safety and the heroism and allowing them to get the drop on the Vietnamese soldiers, that is how he wins the Medal of Honor, or he is awarded the Medal of Honor, so to speak. They wake up next to each other in hospital, but Spaceman is wounded more than Jesse's father is. Spaceman almost loses his leg, but ultimately doesn't, and that was the last time they saw each other. So Jesse tells him that I didn't really earn this medal. And Spaceman is like, your father would have thought you did. And Jesse's like, no, it's not my place to say whether I earned it or not. My father would have given it to me when he deemed it that I'd earned it. So let's leave it here for these men. Which he does. And he leaves Spaceman at the memorial, or at the monument. And that is the end of Salvation. We do get, which we haven't seen before, a few kind of alternative covers, or alternative art, I should say. We get the sex detectives there. And we get that. And that is Preacher Book 7, Salvation. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. Great addition to the Preacher mythos. Love the fact that we're getting backstory of characters, especially Jody, even Laurie, even a little bit more about Spaceman and Custer's father. A really good read, and I absolutely, as I said in the intro, fucking love Odin Quincannon. From the fact that he's a tiny psychopath, to the fact that he has a giant meat woman, to the fact that he constantly refers to himself in the third person. He is just a fun, stupid, well-written, power-hungry character. Just thoroughly enjoyed everything about the Salvation storyline in Preacher, which I was quite surprised they used it for the first season. But there you have it. So, Preacher, Book 7. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Follow our new Kickstarter. That is coming out soon. You will be able to find it. I will leave a link in the description below so that you can kind of jump on board there. Comment on the video, comment on anything else you kind of want me to read and review. I do have a lot of stuff in the back catalogue that I want to get through. I just really want to finish Preacher, and I've only got 2 more books in the series to go before I jump into maybe some of the older DC and Marvel stuff. A couple of novels that I'm trying to get finished for you guys. But until that time, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, but most importantly, have sex with a giant woman made out of meat, people.